Furtemba Sherpa was just 10 years old when he first ran away from his remote village in Sankhuwasabha to Kathmandu, a city where he hoped to find work and send money to help his parents feed and raise his 6 siblings. There, he struggled hard, washed dishes in restaurants, and performed odd jobs. But gradually, he climbed the ladders of success as he found his entrepreneurial side. By his 20s, he owned a successful restaurant and a clothing store. In those years, Nepal was plagued by the Maoist conflict. As Sherpa returned home to meet his parents, he was deeply saddened to witness the slaughtering of Nepali people by their own fellow brethren. He started asking himself how, in the land where Lord Buddha was born, such slaughter of innocent people can occur. Then and there, he decided Nepal, the birthplace of Lord Buddha, must become a peaceful country once again and bearer of peace. So he decided to run away once again, this time on 25th of December 2003, just like he did on that cold morning 13 years earlier. Having witnessed the devastation of the war firsthand and the ensuing destruction of forests, mountains and rivers, Sherpa was determined to change things around. He decided to take his passion for cycling and pedal around the world and promote the message of peace, social harmony and environment protection across the globe. After clocking in 101,321 kilometers on his bike so far, Sherpa has successfully delivered his message to the citizens of 100 countries across 6 continents. When on tour, he cycles 10 hours on average every day, covering 80 to 120 kilometers. With 51 more countries on his list, this expert cyclist hopes to finish his expedition by 2020 so he can spend time with his wife and 2 daughters. When people wonder and ask him why he is doing this, he says he does it for his daughters and for children around the world. One pedal stroke at a time, he hopes his story will inspire people to act in their own way to make a greener earth. He believes we can find solutions through mutual respect, dialogue and understanding rather than through violence. Sherpa's journey, however, hasn't been as easy as it looks, as we'll learn later. He has faced his fair share of mishaps and misfortunes on the road. He was looted in Nigeria, swept away by a flood in Liberia, forced to take shelter in jungles and travel for days on stretch on an empty stomach. The flags that adorn his shirt and bicycle, his 7th, are a testimony of the battles he has fought. But Furtemba is quick to point out that the good memories trump over the bad ones and is particularly fond of Nepalis in the diaspora. Sherpa landed in Egypt, land of pyramids, on August 26, Friday. There, he got a chance to be in Al Alamein War Cemetery, where 4 brave Nepali Gurkha soldiers were buried. Gurkhas are Nepali soldiers recruited by foreign armies and known for their bravery and valor. Another interesting incident during this trip was a loot attempt on him. Some people came from behind on a mini truck, stopped in front of his bicycle. There, they forcefully tried to keep his mobile phone and bicycle with the 100 kg trailer in their mini truck. Hadn't he furnished a letter from the Nepalese embassy in Egypt written in Egyptian language describing his cycling attempt, he would not have been spared. After knowing about his work, the looters stepped back and returned his bicycle and phone. It took Sherpa 24 hours in a ship to travel from the border of Egypt to Sudan. There he was surprised to learn about roofless hotels. Hotels in Sudan had no roof at all. There was a big hall where about 30 beds were aligned. Although it was peculiar and insecure for him at the first, he eventually adjusted himself as he discovered that the reason for roofless hotels was the dry weather of Sudan and lack of rainfall in the region. Another highlight of his journey in Sudan was traveling through Sahara Desert, one of the most inhospitable climate and unforgiving landscapes. He would often drink water from a special Sudanese bottle made of goat skin to keep cool during his journey. In Ethiopia, the origin country of River Nile, Sherpa often faced problems of food poisoning. He vomited for 13 times in a day, and at times he almost felt like he was dying. Another disheartening incident for Sherpa was when he would be thrown stones at by some children while cycling on the road. Clearly, he was unimpressed by such hostility taken up by kids at such a young age. In the capital Nairobi, Sherpa's bicycle was hit by a car, but fortunately, his life was spared. He later had his bike fixed at a local workshop there. Uganda was a memorable traveling destination for Sherpa as he came across some charming kids and celebrated his 8th year of his journey. Unfortunately, of the kids he met, 8 of them suffered from malaria and could not afford treatment. Malaria in Africa is very common, yet it is the deadliest killer disease of the African continent. Out of pity, he bought some medicine to the kids and prayed for their quick recovery. He was happy to see the smile on their faces and proud of himself for his little contribution. It was also his 8th year of his world tour on a cycle, and he made sure he celebrated it in a grand way. His friends in Uganda made his stay in the capital Kampala very pleasant and special. On the occasion of his 8th year completion, a cake was brought in to celebrate. In South Sudan, Sherpa was called Madam by the policemen on the road because of his long hair. Bribery was very common there, and he had to pass a series of corrupt people and officials to get to the capital. The roads of Congo were difficult to conquer for Sherpa, but a positive highlight of the journey was when he got to meet some fellow Nepali soldiers. There he met some Nepali UN peacekeepers stationed in Benin and received a very warm, hearty and pleasant experience. He felt honored to have been in a group of the brave Gurkhas, working hard every day to keep the fame of Nepal high above all. The genocide war in Rwanda reminded Sherpa of the Maoist conflict back home. It was disheartening to learn about the Rwandan genocide of 1994 that led to the loss of 1 million lives. The number of dead people from the brutal conflict counted to 20% of the population of Rwanda and 85% of the total population of the local tribe Tutsi. Traveling by cycle in Burundi was the most convenient mode of transport. In a hilly country like Burundi, bicycle was used for carrying goods and for mobility. For Sherpa, Tanzania was the longest cycling route than in any other country of Africa. He traveled for 2 months inside Tanzania, covering a distance of 1700 kilometers. There, he traveled across the Serengeti National Park, met some special African tribal chiefs, or Maasai as they were called. Traveling inside the national park was also the most expensive endeavor for him. He had to spend $780 on a single day. Sherpa also got a chance to meet some kids at a school to share the message of peace and environment protection. Traveling on the desolate lands of Malawi by the side of Lake Malawi was a tiring endeavor. Not only was he hungry, but there were also no food stations nearby. So he was forced to ask for food from some workers on the road. The workers were happy to share their food with Sherpa once they knew about his cycling trip and gave him a good company. At Zamibia, Sherpa hit a food crisis when he mistakenly left behind his food items. On the desolate roads, he had nothing to eat. Thanks to the utensils he carried with him, he managed to cook some raw food on the way. One of the dishes he cooked was sima, which is cooked maize flour, and it was much similar to his native food, makai ko dhero. Sherpa's journey of the African subcontinent finally hit a roadblock when he visited South Africa. Out of financial crisis, he had to stay in South Africa for nearly 5 months with his friends. He also had to wait for 3 months to get his visa approved for the next countries on his list. He felt so frustrated that at times he often felt like quitting his entire trip and returning back to Nepal. Had it not been for the moral and financial support of his friends and Nepali people, he would not have been able to get his milestone of 100 countries. Namib Desert is one of the oldest deserts in Africa. Here, Sherpa discovered how vehicle drivers would interestingly use the metal part of his tires to cook food on the way and meet their hunger. Angola is a rapidly developing country that was once at war until 2005. It is also one of the most expensive countries in the world. Sherpa was surprised to learn that US dollars, which was widely accepted as a currency there, was no longer in use. Although he was shocked to see bullet holes and other vestiges of the war along the roads he traversed, he was overwhelmed by the benevolence and determination of the Angolese people. The police, administration, and locals gave him enough support to spread the message of peace, a feeling they themselves embraced so dearly. It was a peculiar sight for Sherpa to witness streets of Gabon lined with meat of wild animals such as rats, snakes, and monkeys. The locals would kill these animals from the forest and put it up for sale on the streets. During his journey through the forest, Sherpa also had a terrifying experience of being haunted. Despite the total absence of humans in the dense forest, he would often hear strange sounds resembling that of human beings. He rushed hard through the forest and escaped as fast as he could. In Nigeria, a second loot attempt was made on Sherpa. Sherpa met some guys on bikes while traveling through a lonely road. They seemed friendly at first and he talked with them nicely for a few minutes and enjoyed their company. After a while, they offered him something to eat. Since he was hungry, Sherpa consented. But in just a few minutes, Sherpa started to faint. When he woke up, he realized that he was lying alone on the road. Sherpa almost encountered death in Liberia twice. It was raining hardly one day during a stay at a village in Liberia. When the rain showed no signs of stopping, he decided to move ahead to Monrovia through the forest. The rain was mild and he managed to cross 2 rivers before entering another one sandwiched between 2 small hills. Unfortunately, this time, he was taken by the water current as he drowned to his neck level. Despair turned into hopelessness and he was almost sure he was going to die. He and his bike were traveling along with the river current at high speeds. But then a miracle happened. Some 20 to 25 meters ahead, his bicycle stuck to a tree and he managed to grab hold of it. At last, the ordeal was over as he clung on to his bicycle. He called for help and a man offered to help him in exchange for $100. Seeing no other way, he agreed. But after he was rescued, Sherpa managed to convince the man to accept just $20 that he had with him. Another deadly experience in Liberia was when Sherpa contracted malaria, a common yet deadly disease in Africa. He had traveled through several African countries before, but not once did he contract malaria. But his 100th visit in Liberia proved otherwise. He had to undergo treatment a number of times to get rid of the disease.